Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Min. So today I've got another sensational case that happened in Hong Kong. In a nutshell, it involves a person conspiring with a friend to murder and dismember his own parents. However, the societal reflections triggered by this case make it impossible not to contemplate. We, as Eastern Asians, are actually greatly harmed by this existing patriarchal system. Education, mental health, and family relationships are all distorted due to this oppressive system. The reasons behind today's case, as stated by one of the perpetrators, also stem from this problem. Of course, through investigations and a series of evidence presented in court, everything coped with the vastly different accounts from the two culprits makes this case even more perplexing. So what is it? Without further ado, let's dive right into it. On the 12th of March 2013, a new page named Missing Mom Dad was published on Facebook. The owners of this page are two brothers, the elder brother and his younger brother Henry Chou. Shortly after, this account posted a missing persons notice seeking help to locate their disappeared parents. A little over a week ago, on the morning of the 1st of March 2013, the elder brother, feeling under the weather due to a heavy cold, guerrillally exchanged greetings with their parents who were about to leave. That night, the parents didn't return home. Henry Chou informed his brother that they went out to a distant place to meet old friends for tea and might stay overnight nearby. The next evening, Henry Chou told his brother that he had lunch with their parents at a restaurant in Hong Kong somewhere. And at 2 p.m., their parents took a direct cross-border bus to the mainland, but didn't specify the exact city they were heading to. In the following days, the brothers neither saw their parents return home nor received any messages from them. Calls to their mobile phones went straight to voicemail. By the 5th of March, the brothers were growing increasingly anxious due to this complete lack of communication from their parents. As the Chou couple had relatives and two properties in Shenzhen City, the brothers went to Shenzhen on the 6th of March to look for clues and question all their relatives there, but they found no leads. On the same evening, the brothers finally went to the police station to file a report. The police made a record and advised them to keep in touch with all of their families, right? So they informed their uncle's family, sharing the details of their parents' disappearances. On the 8th of March, the elder brother went to the police station again, and the police suggested reporting the case to the mainland. However, 1 day later, on the 9th of March, after checking immigration records, the police discovered that their parents had never left Hong Kong. On the 11th of March, the uncle, aunt, and a cousin who worked at the church came to the Chou family to help the brothers check their parents' letters and bank accounts. Henry Chou, the younger brother, asked the cousin to inquire with the bank in their mother's name to access the credit card transaction records, but they got nothing, of course, because, she's not the person. On the same day, the Chou brothers also contacted a media outlet inviting them to shoot a missing persons video at their home. Henry Chou was in the video wearing a gray turtleneck sweater and a microphone and talking confidently during this interview. Henry said his parents are doing well financially and don't have much debt. It's been more than a week since they went missing, but the family hasn't received any ransom demands. The brothers also checked the bank accounts and didn't find any big money transfers or expenses around the time when their parents disappeared. He thinks that his parents didn't disappear because of money issue, but because of something unexpected. He thinks They might have been hiking in a secluded area since they'd like to climb, especially those faraway mountains. He guesses that they might have fallen while climbing, or they might have taken a shady taxi and been robbed. He hopes people in the mountains will keep an eye out for them. However, he also pointed out that their parents' behavior this time is different from usual. In the past, when they traveled, they always informed the family of their destination and stayed in touch. This time, they didn't provide any information and their phones were all turned off. In the final part of the interview, Henry Chau expressed regret, saying, quoted, "We have done everything we can," unquoted. On the 12th of March, the brothers posted requests for help online, sharing information on Facebook, hoping that if anyone encounters an elderly couple, they can get in touch with them. In 2013, there were CCTV and communication devices that were easily accessible, which was different from the previous century. So it's quite surprising that a couple in their 60s who were not extremely frail or incapable were missing in a bustling metropolis like Hong Kong. What adds to the intrigue is that the family of this missing couple used the flourishing social media of that time to post a highly attention-grabbing plea for help. You can imagine how much uproar the disappearance of this couple would have caused in the Hong Kong society back then. With favorable conditions and timely response, in just under 2 weeks, the police conducted a highly effective investigation into this case. The whole process and details of the case are truly astonishing. So what could have possibly happened? On the 2nd of March 2013, when the parents were discovered missing, the Chau brothers took matters into their own hands and conducted an unsuccessful search. On the 9th of March, after their independent efforts yielded no results, the elder brother decided to report it to the police. The Hong Kong police, upon receiving the report, initiated an investigation through this missing persons unit. They found that Mr. and Mrs. Chau had no relevant customs records, indicating that they had left Hong Kong. However, there was no evidence or leads regarding the whereabouts of this missing couple either. On the 13th of March, just 4 days after the Chau brothers reported it to the police, Henry Chau gave an interview to a television station. During the interview, he appeared calm and did not display any signs of anxiety, calmly seeking assistance from the public. This TV interview gathered more attention to the case of the missing couple, of course. On the same day when the interview taken place, the Hong Kong police transferred the case from the specialized missing persons unit to the serious crime unit. Less than 24 hours after taking over the case, at 7 a.m. on the 15th of March, the Serious Crime Unit apprehended Henry Chau at his residence. Shortly after his arrest, Henry Chau revealed his accomplice, a friend who was 5 or 6 years older than him. At 10 a.m. on the same day, this crime unit also arrested his accomplice, Angus. So let's look at how the police figured out who the suspects were and caught them. After taking over the case, this serious crime unit, following the handover from this missing persons unit, they started scrutinizing the mobile communication records, bank deposits, and credit card transactions of these 2 missing people. Simultaneously, they examined surveillance footage around their residence, hoping to pinpoint their last known location. According to Henry Chau's statement, he and his parents parted ways around 2 p.m. on the 2nd of March at a specific location. However, despite repeatedly reviewing the surveillance footage near this mentioned place, the police couldn't spot the trio. The couple hadn't returned home since leaving at 11:19 a.m. on the 1st of March, accompanied by exactly this Henry Chau. The police traced their movements, discovered that the three of them took a bath together. At 11:26 a.m., Henry Chau and his parents passed by a gas station, and 14 minutes later, they entered a building. It's this one that displayed on the screen. However, at 12 p.m., Henry Chau left the building alone, and his parents were not seen outside of the building afterwards. This raised suspicions that Henry Chau might be lying. As Henry Chau's interviews gained exposure, several Hong Kong media outlets started covering the case, increasing public attention, so most people knew about this. On an online forum, a mature detective closely analyzed the footage of Henry Chau's interviews, noticing his evasive eye movements and a peculiar smile while answering a particular question. And there were numerous inconsistencies in his statements. Firstly, the claim of the Chau couple going missing after traveling to the mainland was provided precisely by Henry Chau, but the police found no records of them leaving Hong Kong. Secondly, why wouldn't the mother tell them where they were going and when they would come back? And why didn't Henry Chau ask about it like he did before? Additionally, the brothers waited several days before beginning to look for their parents instead of reporting them missing right away, which didn't make sense. As these opinions continued to spread, some people shared that they were acquainted with Henry Chau and described him as someone with very extreme views and a negative outlook on the world. Subsequently, others on the social media revealed tweets from Henry Chau that showed he was not happy with his family, indicating that they were having quite a strained relationship. Consequently, more people began to believe that there was a connection between Henry Chau and his parents' disappearance. On the 14th of March, the police asked the Chau brothers to come back to the station for more questions because the CCTV didn't match up with what Henry Chau had said. The older brother kept saying the same thing, while Henry Chau talked a lot about his personal life and family, but he never mentioned exactly when he was with his parents having on the 2nd of March. After this second time questioning with the police, Henry Chau might have felt something really strange, so he sent a message over WhatsApp to his cousin when he got home. Over the messages, he said he wanted to meet her that day to discuss more onto this case and added a sentence saying something like, "If we can't meet, I might not have a chance to tell the truth." His cousin was at work at the time, so she suggested that she could meet him up after work, right? Henry said his brother wouldn't come, but he brought along his friend for over 20 years. In the early morning of the 15th, the exhausted cousin met him as planned at a 24-hour McDonald's. Sorry, I smile because everyone loved to meet at McDonald's. Anyway, the first thing Henry asked was, can Christians forgive people? Then he told his cousin he had killed and dismembered his parents. His cousin was shocked and speechless. Henry said his parents had super high expectations of him since young that became too much to bear, and they were never able to fulfill his financial or emotional needs. He said his childhood was not happy, his parents fought a lot, and his dad was angry and would hit his brother, who would then take it out on him. This made him hate his family since he was a child. He said that things that happened to him when he was a kid make him think that he had psychopathy. This made it hard for him to feel empathy for other people, and he didn't express his emotions in the same way that most people do. He had always felt like he was having a really bad day and was feeling down, and had even thought about ending his own life. But after seeing his friend Angus, who he's known for a long time, he went from thinking about suicide to wanting to hurt someone else. He said, August had similar thoughts and feelings, so they understood each other well enough, and so they planned the murder together a few months ago. He also confessed that he had considered killing his older brother, but after his parents disappeared, his brother's attitude towards him became very good, so he changed his mind. Henry Chou admitted that he didn't have the courage to confess the truth to his brother face to face and requested his cousin to convey this message. After some thought, his cousin calmed down and asked Henry Chou to surrender to the police. Henry Chou agreed, but he did not want to disturb the police officers because it was late at the time. He said he would turn himself in the next morning. The three of them left around 3 a.m. However, hours before Henry Chou confessed to his cousin, he had already admitted to killing his parents in an online chat group. On that night, someone in the group called the cops. So at 7:05 in the morning, the police knocked on the Chou family's door and arrested Henry Chou on charges of murder. After the police read him his rights, Henry Chou immediately admitted that he and his friend Angus had killed his parents at home, and his brother, who was nearby, was completely shocked. The Chou couple and their 2 sons have been living in this place for over 20 years. In the eyes of their neighbors, the couple was very affectionate, leading a very healthy lifestyle, hiking, walking, buying groceries, and cooking together every day. After retirement, they sustained their livelihood by renting out a few properties they bought during their younger days. As for the 2 sons, the elder one, who was known for being honest and responsible, and also took good care of his parents. On the other hand, the younger son, Henry Chou, falls short in comparison. Henry Chou was sent to Australia to study when he was young, but he seemed unhappy with what his parents did for him. Unable to complete his studies, he departed from school in Australia and promptly returned to Hong Kong. The elder brother said they weren't close and hardly talk. He feels that Henry lives in his own world and always thinks that everyone owes him. You know, these kinds of people usually carry around their super negative vibe like they are wrapped up in this bubble of negativity. Every conversation with them just feels uncomfortable and leaves you speechless. Henry Chou is that type of person in his elder brother's eyes. After dropping out of Australia, Henry Chou often found excuses to change job or stayed at home without working. The longest period of employment lasted only about a year. In recent years, this situation had worsened and he had become very silent. However, it's worth noting that his former colleagues seem to present a completely different image of Henry Chou. They described him as a very talkative person who enjoyed competitive games, had many friends, and had his own thoughts like philosophy, loved pets, and had confidence in his investment skills. He often shared his views on the property market and stocks with his colleagues. However, he can be quite talkative at times, but then suddenly goes silent like a computer that just shut down out of nowhere. On the other hand, Henry Chou set a timeline for himself if he didn't achieve some certain level of success by the age of 30. He planned to commit suicide, and everyone around him seems to know about this. However, he didn't strive towards success but continued to live in his own world without stable employment. Seeing that his self-imposed deadline was approaching, what could he do? Back in 2006, Henry Chou met Angus. Both of them were working at an art exhibition company, dealing with orders, printing documents, and such. They became friends and left their jobs at the end of 2007, but they stayed in touch. Henry often invited Angus out for meals and they chatted online as well. Since both faced setbacks in society, they could relate to each other and found solace. By early 2012, Angus and Henry's communication on MSN became more frequent. According to Henry, the first time they discussed killing was in September 2012. Henry invited Angus for coffee, pouring out his lifelong pain. He felt everything was arranged by his parents, and after growing up, there was no one to understand him. He lacked friends to share his views on classic music, World War II, and Hitler. Yes, he loved Hitler. He mentioned wanting to commit suicide on his 30th birthday, following Hitler's cyanide ingestion after the fall of Berlin. He expressed the desire to take a few people he hated with him before dying. Henry said that August told him that he had tried to kill himself twice and told him that it was pointless. Instead of suicide, Angus suggested seeking revenge on the world, living life on their terms and pursuing what they wanted. He's like a snake in his description. Henry was persuaded, thinking, my parents put a lot of pressure on me. My dad is cocky and my mother always wears a sad look. That's really disappointing. He chose to make a plan to murder his parents because he thought that if they were no longer around, he could start fresh. So on the 13th of October 2012, Angus found out online that the Hong Kong police had difficulty progressing cases of Hong Kong residents missing in mainland China. If a person is missing for 7 years, the law considers them to be dead, and their heirs can claim their belongings and properties. Henry wanted his parents to disappear in Shenzhen, and he and August even scouted the area. Due to extensive surveillance and Henry's unfamiliarity with the local terrain in Shenzhen, he changed his mind and opted to commit the crime in Hong Kong locally. On the 13th of October 2012, Henry asked Angus on MSN to inquire with his girlfriend about the cheapest nail polish remover. Why? He mentioned that the cheaper the remover, the higher this acetone content. Henry also said they needed to buy industrial masks, glasses, and gloves because he feared being poisoned before implementing the plan. But this plan to buy nail polish remover with acetone was ultimately not executed. According to Henry, the two of them spent over an hour every week meticulously planning to kill his parents. On the 25th of October, Henry expressed how much he disliked his mother on Facebook, saying, quoted, I'm growing more and more dislike of talking, especially with Hong Kong women, because when they speak, there are usually only 3 situations. 1, openly expressing their ignorance and stupidity. 2, actually, she doesn't even know she's stupid, but she will argue to prove she's not. 3, saying she's very smart with extremely annoying and self-righteous expectation and body language, but what she says makes you feel her IQ has improved since graduating from high school. On the 18th of December 2012, Henry complained about his family on Facebook, saying, got scolded because I came home too late from playing games at night. On the 20th of December 2012, Henry Chou posted this intriguing blog entry. Father, I am too destroyed and deprived to understand. What is the point of confession if I do not repent? The scene in Angus' apartment was quite a surprise for the police and the forensic team who entered. The air didn't smell like decaying bodies, instead it was filled with the scent of disinfectant and air fresheners. The apartment had a living room, kitchen, bathroom, and 3 bedrooms. As in this picture, that room E was Angus' bedroom, while room C and D had doors taped closed and towels wedged underneath. In the living room, the investigators found a hand card, 2 bags of cement, a backpack, over a dozen pairs of work gloves, and activated charcoal. Bloodstains were discovered in various places in the living room, including on the walls, refrigerators, and cabinets. Upon opening room C, a blast of cold air hit them. On one side of the room, 2 small refrigerators were secured with iron chains. Above each refrigerator sat a microwave. Both refrigerators were taped shut at the door and padded with towels at the bottom, which the forensics believe was to prevent liquids from seeping out. And what was in the refrigerators? I bet you've guessed it. They contained body parts. In one of the refrigerators, a woman's head was padded with a towel in this fridge, and in the freezer compartment were 2 white lunch boxes containing human tissue and organs. And when they opened the second refrigerator, they found a man's head was placed with a towel underneath it, and it was just like how they found it in the first refrigerator. On the freezer level, also on a towel, were placed 2 white lunch boxes also containing human organs. There was also a white plastic bag containing large human remains. Each of the 2 microwaves in the apartment had a white bowl with a yellow oily substance inside and on the glass plate. Forensic tests showed that the oily substance in these microwaves was actually heated human grease. Next to the fridge was the big black trash bag, which Henry later said had clothes and IDs of his parents who died there. In the entryway, there was a pile of items including a bicycle, duct tape, 2 rice cookers, and over 600 disposable lunch boxes. Room D had air conditioning and a big wooden table. As soon as they walked in, they could see a cutting board on the table, and it was covered in blood. Below the table were 2 red plastic buckets, a saucepan, and 2 knives. In one of those red plastic buckets, it had a rice cooker liner inside, while the other had 7 knives, broken saw blades, and other tools. And there were 3 black garbage bags were neatly stacked against the wall, each sealed with tape and holding a sealed black plastic box. Inside this plastic box, there were 3 more sealed plastic bags, each containing human body parts. 3 large boxes, and within the boxes were bags. It's like the Russian nesting dolls, one layers inside another. The first sealed plastic bag contained 5 human limbs, one of which had 6 fingers on the left hand. It was discovered that Henry Chau's father also had exactly 6 fingers on his left hand. And along with the limbs, there were also rotten skin and flesh and ground meat with salt stains. The second sealed bag contained a right foot and some ground meat as well. And finally, the third contained a left foot and also ground meat. In addition to the body parts, each sealed plastic bag also contains a bunch of deodorant balls, bagged insect repellent, and drying agents. After DNA testing, it was confirmed that the deceased individuals were indeed Mr. and Mrs. Chau. Over the course of 3 days, technicians found 13 air fresheners bottles, 7 empty bleach bottles, 29 towels, 8 packs of sand, 17 packets of cement, 9 packets of salt, 2 industrial eye masks, 4 rice cookers with white rice, 2 metal pots, 2 induction cookers, and 615 sets of new lunch boxes in Angus' apartment. The suspected tools they used for the murder include 4 fruit knives, 3 meat cleavers, and a pair of fruit tongs, an iron saw, and 2 broken saw blades, all of which have bloodstains on them. Henry Chau and Angus' fingerprints were found on the taped paper sealing the cracks of 2 doors. Handwriting notes were discovered under Angus' bed containing shopping lists and instructions on bloodletting after the murder. A further examination showed that the male victim was missing his left thigh, left calf, and right calf, while the female was missing her right forearm and palm. According to Henry Chau's confession, he threw some of the body parts into the sea on the evening of the 7th of March. Because the body parts had been dismembered, salted, and microwaved, it was difficult for the forensic pathologist to accurately deduce the time of death. The male victim had wounds on his neck and chest caused by a sharp instrument, and the female had frontal stabbing sharp instrument wounds on her neck and chest, in addition to 6 wounds on her chin. The forensics summarized that the neck and chest wounds of these 2 victims were most likely the cause of their deaths. After careful detection, the police confirmed that Angus' apartment was where the killings and dismemberment of the bodies first occurred. Starting from 2010, August has been sharing an apartment in this building with his sister and her boyfriend. In January 2013, Henry Chau gave Angus about 20,000 Hong Kong dollar in cash, asking him to lie to his sister and his sister's boyfriend, saying something like the developer of this building had redevelopment plans and convinced them to move out of this building, freeing up the apartment for their gruesome plan. Because Henry Chau believed that the original refrigerator they used in the apartment was not sufficient to store 2 bodies. So on the 10th of January 2013, August bought a second-hand larger refrigerator at a relatively low price under his order. At the same time, following Henry Chau's instructions, Angus went to several different convenience stores and bought a total of 12 SIM cards, 6 for each of them. The 2 of them also purchased 2 burner phones to discuss their murderous plans, using these phones and cards to avoid police tracking. In February 2013, Henry Chau wrote the murder notes and handed them over to Angus' syringe and lunchbox, prominently written in large font on the first page. Henry Chau planned to use a 50 ml syringe to drain his parents' blood, calculating that only about 100 draws would be needed to drain 1 person's blood, totaling 4.7 to 5 liters. Henry Chau planned to dismember 1 body over 3 days. The murder notes also marked 4 garbage collection points in their local areas for disposing of the bodies. Henry Chau again gave Angus another 20 grand Hong Kong dollar to purchase tools and specifically instructed him to buy a 50 ml syringe from a mainland Chinese seller on the internet. The 2 went to a store together and bought 10 knives. Angus, on his own, bought a bone saw, a meat cleaver, a steak knife, curtains, a black backpack, bleach, air freshener, work gloves, industrial eye protection, garbage bags, a cutting board, rice, salt, a hammer, a hacksaw, 2 microwave ovens, and 3 rice cookers. Everything they needed for their gruesome plan. After the purchase, Angus gave the itemized bill to Henry Chau and told him that they were almost out of money. So Henry Chau gave him an additional 5,000 Hong Kong dollar. Checking the calendar, Henry Chau noted that the 1st of March 2013 was a Friday, followed by a weekend. Henry Chau was sure that his parents' part-time company wouldn't come looking for them, and his brother would think they were just on a trip to Shenzhen, as he would plan. At least, this would buy them 2 days to commit the crime and deal with the bodies. So Henry Chau scheduled the murders for this day. Subsequently, Angus resigned from his security job and informed his friends he had really important and highly confidential things to do. He asked them not to look for him for the next 3 months, assuring everyone that he would contact them once everything was done. So on the 25th of February 2013, Henry Chau told his parents that he and a friend planned to rent a flat in a building, and he was going to move out from his parents' place. He asked his parents to help clean and organize this new place. The couple was happy, thinking that this was Henry's way of starting to stand on his own. On the 1st of March 2013 at 11:19 a.m., Henry Chau left home with his parents taking a bath. At around 11:26 a.m., the three arrived at the bus stop of their destination, getting off the bus and walking past a gas station, as you can see from the CCTV footage. At 11:40 a.m., they entered the building together. At 12 p.m., Henry Chau left the building alone. What exactly happened between 11:40 a.m. and 12 p.m. remains known only to Henry Chau and Angus at this brief 20-minute period. Who killed the couple is a matter of conflicting statements between the two. Henry Chau's parents both grew up in Hong Kong, went to the same secondary school, and got married a few years after graduating. Their eldest son was born in 1977 and Henry Chau in 1984. In 1988, the Chaus bought a 2-room, 1-hall flat. The parents took the master bedroom while the brothers shared the second room. Mr. and Mrs. Chau worked really hard and lived frugally. Even after retirement, Mr. Chau took on part-time security jobs, while Mrs. Chau did part-time clerical work. Later, they bought another flat in Hong Kong and 2 properties in Shenzhen. They made a will, splitting their assets evenly between their sons. After graduating in Hong Kong, the elder brother went to study in Australia. When he returned to Hong Kong, he became an insurance broker and continued living with his parents, no longer sharing a room with his brother, instead sleeping in the living room. The Chaus had high expectations and hopes for their sons' academics. From young, the brothers took piano lessons and had tutors to improve their English. According to Henry Chau, he often witnessed his drunk father beating his brother in childhood, and his brother would take it out on him after. That's his claim, right? So he never had a good relationship with his brother. Chen lived in the same building as the Chaus and was one of Henry Chau's few good friends. They even went to the same primary and secondary schools together. Oh, and Chen is this 20-year friend of Henry's when he was meeting up his cousin. He was the one next to them. Chen remembers that after starting secondary school, Henry Chau was threatened by bullies and disciplined for fighting. For most of secondary school, Henry Chau was depressed with average grades. The only bright spot was when he dated a girlfriend, but she left for university in the UK and they broke up. Henry Chau's next few relationships also failed quickly. Henry said that the reason for him to lose out in these competitions of romance because he was not tall enough. He complained that his parents passed down the height problems to him, and that they made him study English and piano instead of working out, which prevented him from growing taller. He is now only 164 centimeters tall and feels like he has no chance at dating. At 16, Henry Chou moved to Australia to study, but had a tough time in school as well. He said he was bullied because of his race and even got beaten up by some black guys. He said the stress led him to start worshipping Hitler and reading about him in books and movies. Henry Chou was fed up with studying in Australia, so he quit and went back to Hong Kong. And like I said, his elder brother moved to sleep in the living room, so Henry could take this whole second bedroom for himself. Henry was still mad at his dad for watching TV and playing this traditional Chinese musical instrument, erhu, all day at home, which made it hard to have peace and quiet. Since he was unemployed, Henry Chou became hooked on this online game called Tekken, where he played as a character named Jin Kazama. This character had a tough childhood and gained dark powers after a traumatic event which Henry related to his own experiences growing up. Henry Chou's mother was disappointed with his lack of direction, so she paid for him to study transport and logistics at the Hong Kong University in 2006. She likely hoped that he would pursue a career in an industry familiar to his parents, so the parents could help him get a job and stuff after he graduated, right? After graduation, Henry Chou had several short-lived jobs. A part-time job at HSBC, the bank, gave him insight into stock trading, which he shared on Facebook, claiming big earnings. He continued trading stocks over the next few years. Henry Chou finally started making money and his parents were super happy about this. They decided to invest in a flat in Hong Kong to improve the relationship between Henry and his brother. The down payment for the flat was about 400 grand Hong Kong dollar, and the Chous paid 30% of it. The brothers each paid 35%, and together they paid a monthly mortgage of 2,000 Hong Kong dollar. However, for unknown reasons, Henry Chou began to sexually harass female bus passengers, and he became more absurd when seeing that no one actually reported him. Later, he even had sexual interaction with a date on a bus. In 2008, Henry Chou found work as a customer service clerk at a logistics company. On his 24th birthday, he brought his girlfriend home, but his mother first word was like, "Don't bring girls home overnight." And so the girl left, feeling embarrassed. Henry Chou was really upset and sad because he felt that other parents wanted their kids to get married early, whilst his parents only made it difficult for him to have normal relationships and robbed him of important memories. His relationship with his mother got much worse after this, and she developed depression that same year, though it's not clear if it's related to their family issues. Henry Chou then dated two girls in Shenzhen at the same time. In 2009, one of them got pregnant, but he wanted her to have an abortion. She decided to keep the baby and gave birth to a daughter after they broke up. Henry Chou has never met his daughter. He also had a girlfriend living in Japan then. That same year, auditions were held for an erotic movie. Henry Chou applied, claiming to have rich sexual experience at the interview. And he felt, of course, couldn't be the male actor in this adult movie. Then Henry Chou expressed his sadness at this passing of the renowned American pianist Wild on the 5th of July 2010. He shared what Wild's music has been a part of his life since childhood and that Wild would always be remembered in his heart. On the 1st of October 2010, he criticized his mother on Facebook over political views. In May 2011, Henry Chau started a new job as a salesperson, updating on Facebook how tiring it was as his first sales role. On the 18th of June 2011, he posted about the pain of failure in life and started a 23.5-month countdown to his 30th birthday on the 7th of June 2013. In the comments, he added, quoted, "Since I got sick recently, I think I have a long-term health problem. My kidney pain is keeping me up at night, and my heart feels like it's racing, similar to asthma. My family stresses me out and it's making it difficult for me to sleep well. They don't listen when I speak. They don't want to believe, oh well, it doesn't matter. They don't have to. I'm grown up now. I should take care of myself. I feel like my parents don't respect my lifestyle choices. I want to move out, but I don't have enough money to live on my own and be happy. I can't afford to see a doctor either. If things don't get better by the time I'm 30, I might just leave my parents' home for good. And before I do that, I will make sure to get back at people who have hurt me. I have constantly faced failure in my physical health and work, and the stress is really getting to me. I'm in a lot of pain and feel let down." At the end of 2011, Chen, the 20-year longtime friend, remember, offered Henry Chau a reporter position, but he's frequently scolded by his managers for being lazy. In April 2012, the stock market crashed and Henry Chau almost went bankrupt. He couldn't pay his mortgage and asked his parents to sell their $7 million flat and gave him and his brother some of the money. His mother said no, of course. To avoid fighting, his brother bought Henry's 35 shares for 800,000 Hong Kong dollar. Just so, Henry didn't need to pay for the mortgage anymore. Henry Chau got money and quit his reporting job. He put all those 800 grand Hong Kong dollar into the stock market again. By June, the market had lost almost all of his money. In January 2012, he posted on Facebook, "Some say all men are created equal, but I say all men are born potential rapists." On the 7th of June 2012, Henry celebrated his 29th birthday with friends at a restaurant. He hardly ever talked about his family on Facebook, but the day after his birthday, on the 8th of June, he posted a blurry photo that seemed to show that his mother was at the dinner table, probably having a family dinner to celebrate his birthday. Angus, born in 1978, is 6 years older than Henry Chau. His parents divorced when he was young, and his mother raised his older sister and him on her own. Angus was often bullied by his classmates because he was small and slow to react. He didn't do well in school, and after he graduated, he started working. Angus often received criticism from his bosses and colleagues in the workplace for being clumsy. While working as a security guard, he was given shoes that were too small, but he didn't ask for a replacement. He wore those shoes for 3 months, which eventually led to severe periodontitis. In 2000, while seeking medical treatment at a clinic, Angus met a nurse. They began dating and moved in together, and Angus developed a significant dependency on this girlfriend. However, in 2002, it said that the relationship ended because the nurse girlfriend developed a drug addiction. Afterwards, Angus dated another girlfriend called Mia in 2005, but they also broke up a year later. In 2008, Angus traveled to New Zealand and met a new girlfriend there. To be with this girlfriend, Angus stayed in New Zealand illegally for nearly 2 years. This girlfriend frequently asked Angus for money, citing reasons like tuition fees and car accidents. Angus borrowed over $100,000 from banks and friends to meet her demands. However, shortly after returning to Hong Kong in 2010, Angus discovered that this girlfriend had found a new boyfriend, leaving him heartbroken. Struggling with overwhelming emotions and huge debts, Angus tried to kill himself at home by swallowing mercury cough medicine and rat poison. His family quickly took him to the hospital to get help. Even though he made it through, his memory was affected. In 2011, Angus was introduced to a Chinese woman living in Indonesia by his first nurse girlfriend's older brother. This was after Angus had attempted suicide due to a failed relationship. By that time, his nurse girlfriend had already passed away from a drug overdose. Although Angus had never met or talked to this woman before, surprisingly, the two got married on the second day of her arrival in Hong Kong. However, on the wedding night, the Indonesian woman informed Angus that she was already married in Indonesia and had a boyfriend on the meantime. Wow, so she was technically dating 3 guys simultaneously. Anyway, Angus later found out that his Indonesian wife was actually the niece of his nurse girlfriend. Her father had tried to use Angus to help his daughter get residency in Hong Kong. But because Angus had a lot of debt, their visa application was rejected and his wife had to go back to Indonesia. Therefore, by the second half of 2012, both Henry Chau and Angus found themselves effectively single, and the two began to communicate frequently. Soon after, a brutal and bloody murder plan took place. So which of the two actually committed the murder of Chau couple? On the 23rd of February 2015, the trial for the Chau couple murder case began in the Hong Kong High Court. Henry Chau, 31, and Angus, 37, were accused of committing 2 murders and getting rid of the bodies improperly. They both admitted to unlawfully disposing of the bodies. However, Henry Chau was expected, claiming mental instability, denied the allegations of plotting of inheritance and premeditated murder, admitting only to 2 counts of manslaughter. On the other hand, Angus overturned his previous statements, categorically denying the murder charges. Henry Chau's defense presented 2 arguments. Firstly, according to Henry Chau's statement to the police, Angus initially suggested killing the Chau couple, and Angus was the one who ultimately committed the murders. Henry Chau claimed to have only stabbed his father and did not actually commit murder. Additionally, most of the dismemberment work was done by Angus alone between the 2nd of March and the 5th of March 2013. Secondly, Henry Chau said 3 people in his family, including his dad, had schizophrenia symptoms. He often listened to a classic music piece that made him believe in the end of the world. A psychiatrist hired by the defense said this means Henry might have inherited mental illness and should be convicted of manslaughter. The prosecution called in 2 medical experts, including a psychiatric consultant and a psychiatrist from a mental hospital, to challenge the defense claims. They argued that Henry Chau showed narcissistic traits and a lack of empathy, blaming others for his own failures and seeing the murder of his parents as a solution. Although they acknowledged some personality disorders, they stated that Henry Chau was not completely mentally ill and was fully responsible for his action. Henry Chau's brother told the court that their family does not have a history of mental illness. He described Henry as someone who keeps to himself and doesn't talk much to others. He also said Henry seemed to have a sense of entitlement. He explained that while their parents were strict, they never abused them. He also said that there were no conflicts at all in the family despite Henry's struggles in school and work. Angus took back his confession in court and said he wasn't at the building when the crime happened. He explained that he was held by the police for 41 hours and was questioned intensely for a total of 9 hours over 7 sessions. This made him tired and led him to confess to things he didn't do. There is no information about evidence showing that Angus was there either. But cameras at the building's entrance recorded Henry Chau and his parents going upstairs on the 1st of March, with one person coming down, right? It's not clear why the surveillance inside the building couldn't be used to confirm whether Angus was there or not. Maybe because there are areas where the cameras can't see. That's my guess. The prosecution argued that Angus showed he knew about Henry Chau's plan to murder through actions like buying steak knives and a freezer to hide bodies, arranged for his sisters to move and quit his jobs and stuff. Angus said he didn't buy tools to dismantle and said he never bought a refrigerator. He explained that he was forced to resign by Henry Chau during a drunk trip. Angus' second girlfriend, Mia, testified in court on the 27th of February 2015. She described Angus as easily influenced and weak-willed. She said he could be easily shaped and lacked awareness of protecting himself. She also believed that he would not harm animals or any single human being. Angus's defense lawyer called a clinical psychologist to testify on the 7th of March as well. The psychologist had met with Angus 7 times starting in late March 2013 and conducted intelligence tests. The results showed that Angus had an overall IQ of 84, which is below average intelligence. The argument was that with his low IQ, Angus would have difficulty planning a complex murder. Angus has never used violence when dealing with deceptions or bullying in the past. In fact, he was responded with kindness in some situations, like with this Indonesian wife incident, showing that he does not have violent tendencies. The psychologist noted that Angus's first 6 statements were smooth and coherent, but in the 7th statement, where he confessed to murder, he seemed to struggle to communicate effectively. The psychologist described his 7th statement was being too simple and mechanical, leading them to believe that it was not a genuine account. The psychologist also noted that Angus' fear was very real when he talked about seeing body parts. He kept talking about it over and over, which showed that it had a big impact on him. The psychologist said Angus showed signs of PTSD, this post-traumatic stress disorder, like having a lot of bad dreams about the body parts. Angus' defense argued that the prosecution didn't have strong evidence to prove Angus' involvement in planning and carrying out the murder, and they didn't provide a clear reason for why he would do it either. They also pointed out that Angus has a lower IQ of 84, while Henry Chau has a much higher IQ of 126, making it unlikely that Angus could manipulate Henry into committing the murder. The defense found this idea unconvincing. The defense also pointed out inconsistencies in the murder charges against Henry Chau and Angus. The prosecution claimed that Henry Chau killed his parents for their inheritance. But when accusing Angus of plotting the murders, they said he influenced Henry by suggesting that murder was better than suicide. Then this argument raised the question: did Henry Chau killed for money, or was he manipulated by Angus? If Henry Chau committed murder for inheritance, then the charges against Angus would not be valid. If Angus forced Henry Chau to commit the murder, then the prosecution would have to consider Henry Chau's motive. The defense claimed that Henry Chau confessed to his cousin about those murders and hinted at Angus' involvement as a calculated attempt to frame Angus. Well, they've been going back and forth like this. Finally, the trial ended in March 2015. While the jury was discussing the case, they wanted to know if it still counted as murder if Angus was not there but was believed to have been involved in planning the murder. So they asked the judge for the definition of murder. The judge said that being involved in planning a murder is considered conspiracy to commit murder, not the actual act of the murder. The jury needed to determine whether Angus actually committed the murder inside this apartment on the 1st of March 2013 in order to find him guilty of murder. The jury took less than 7 hours to reach a verdict. They found Henry Chau guilty of 2 counts of murder by a vote of 8-1 and unanimously acquitted Angus of murder. Angus was given a 1-year prison sentence for unlawfully disposing of a body, but since he was already spent almost 2 years in custody, he was released right away. Henry Chau was then sentenced to 9 years and 4 months for preventing lawful burial and life imprisonment for 2 murder charges, to be served at the same time. The judge criticized the police for holding Angus for 41 hours and questioning him. The police held Angus for so long and questioned him at 2:30 in the morning, which he thinks was unfair. They were clearly trying to get him before this 48-hour limit, which is not right, especially considering that Angus is not very smart. The judge criticized Henry Chau for being manipulative and dangerous, while pointing out that Angus was unaware and ended up being used by him. Henry Chau took advantage of Angus's apartment to carry out his sinister plans, which is despicable. The judge said he doesn't usually talk about the jury's decisions, but this time he had to agree with them. Henry Chau always thought he was smarter than everyone else, but he was really bad at getting along with people. He never thought he did anything wrong and always blamed others, and even now he doesn't feel sorry. It's really messed up. It's been a while since I had a blabber section at the end, mainly because throughout the storytelling of many cases, I've already spilled a lot of my thoughts. But today I've decided to bring back this segment and have a good chat about the case of Henry Chau and Angus. The act of killing one's own parents used to have a specific name called parricide. This includes factors like family hierarchy, social control, and behavior problems. Why did Henry Chau resort to such a brutal way to kill his parents? I believe we need to fully understand why this crime was committed. Firstly, emotional stress caused by cognitive issues. Henry Chau's parricide case involves a lot of emotional pressure, especially because the dismemberment of the body was not just about hiding evidence, but also a way for him to cope with his feelings. The intense emotional stress seemed to be linked to a clear cognitive mistake. To understand this, we should start to asking what Henry Chau cares about the most, and it seemed to be his appearance and height. Data suggested that he should be around 164 and 166 centimeters tall. Henry Chau is not very tall, and he thinks it's because he didn't exercise enough when he was a kid. Henry Chau often generalizes his failures as the result of unfair treatment and discrimination. He believes that his parents' pressure and his short statures have held him back from showcasing his true abilities. He blames his parents for all his misfortunes and overlooks his own lack of effort. For over 10 years, he has blamed his parents for his struggles with discrimination and difficulty forming relationships with the opposite sex. He also feels that his parents have placed unreasonable expectations over him. However, the truth is that Henry Chau has been in 5 relationships already, and it's hard to blame his parents for his difficulties with the opposite sex in all 5 of his relationships, isn't it? Secondly, he has clear financial motives. Henry Chau was deeply involved in the stock market and was always chasing after his first big financial success through stock investments. He was in a lot of debt from trading stocks, and his parents had always helped him pay it off. After a few quiet years, he once again started trading stocks and got into more debt. He went back to his parents to ask for help, but this time they said no. Henry Chau thought that if he inherited their properties, he could pay off his debts and prove himself. But his parents were healthy, so he thought about making him go away, since they hadn't been nice to him anyway, in his mind. It seemed like a clear way to solve his financial problems by getting rid of them. Henry Chau even brought cement, planning to encase the remains in it and wait for 7 years, hoping to gain access to this inheritance after a court declared them death from missing. Also, there's a twisted desire for self-expression and personality disorders. Now, when you look at this case, you might wonder if Henry Chau has a personality disorder or not. During the trial, the court brought in these 2 psychiatrists as expert witnesses, and neither of them mentioned any personality disorder in Henry Chau, right? There were no signs of any intellectual or organic brain issues either in him. In fact, Henry Chau scored 126 in IQ tests, while Angus only scored 84. But not having a personality disorder doesn't mean there are no scattered features of one. Diagnosing personality disorders is very specific and involves looking for a combination of different characteristics in someone who is not mentally ill. Henry Chau's behavior, which includes dramatic mood swings, pride in being secretive, emotional detachment, and a paranoid state of mind, suggested that he might have a personality disorder. His own assessment of himself as a psychopath or mentally disturbed person seems to be accurate based on his behavior. Henry Chau's standout feature is his unusual need for self-expression, which he demonstrates in various ways. For example, he openly gives interviews and seeks help in public, while he knew for a fact that he killed his own parents. Additionally, the day before his arrest, he was chatting with friends on messaging apps and proudly claimed to have killed his parents without being caught. This behavior confirms a theory. Individuals who experience prolonged social isolation and extreme self-esteem issues are likely to seek attention from society or others in these unusual ways. Lastly, the shift from suicide to homicide. It's not fair to blame Angus for the situation, especially since he didn't do well on the IQ test. Henry Chau had thoughts of suicide even before and had a deadline he set for himself when he was 30 years old. But based on Henry's personality traits, his cowardice, low self-esteem, and lack of perseverance, would he actually go through with it? I don't think so. He had made similar remarks before, saying that if he were to die, he would take someone down with him. The people he wanted to implicate were likely those he resented. If he's talking like that, who would be the targets, right? He said he had a lot of friends, but They were mostly just people he knew or played game with. He didn't have deep conversations with any of them. He changed his jobs a lot or didn't work much, so he didn't spend a lot of time with other people in general. He said he hated his parents and his older brother, but it turns out that his brother was actually nice to him. As he had told his cousin at first he wanted to hurt his brother, but then he changed his mind because his brother had been kind to him. No matter what, Henry Chau couldn't have committed suicide, I think. Suicide was like a psychological bottom line he set for himself, an attempt to push himself to, and a constant reminder that in this society, his parents had left him with no way out, not because he wasn't trying hard enough. Well, that's the excuse he made for himself. This served as a convenient excuse for him. In this situation, coped with the factors he mentioned earlier. It's likely that a conversation with a friend or any literally online acquaintances or a certain phrase or idea made Henry realize that he wasn't alone in his thinking, by killing people. The realization led to the shift from suicide to homicide. And let's talk about Angus. Even though he was cleared of charges and set free, what's the actual truth behind this situation? Angus was involved in purchasing tools for the crime, which was also confirmed by the store owner of a hardware shop. And he communicated with Henry Chau anonymously over the phone and had his sister moved out of this apartment. Meanwhile, he was able to work and pay off a lot of his debt. It's difficult to believe his claim in court that he had no idea of Henry's plan to murder and dismember the victims. Another crucial question is whether Henry Chau, who is slender, could have overpowered both of its parents in less than 20 minutes. There is no evidence of Henry purchasing sedatives, and the autopsy did not find any toxic substances in the couple's bodies. Therefore, it seems unlikely that Henry alone drugged and killed his parents. If Henry Chau managed to keep his parents in separated rooms, it also seems unlikely that he would be able to go to each room separately and harm them one after another. The forensic examination did not find any signs that the Chau couple fought back or tried to defend themselves alone in any of the rooms, right? There were also no signs of a struggle or scratches on the walls. If one person was locked up while the other was being harmed, it is likely they would have fought back and screamed for help. In that case, the neighbors or anyone walking nearby would hear them, as you know how thin the walls are. Given Henry Chau's careful planning, it is unlikely that he would choose such a risky method of murder. Based on everything that's happened. The scenario of Henry and Angus, each killing one person, actually seems more reasonable to me. In the movie adaptation of this case, there's a character who refers to Angus. And yes, this case was turned into a miniseries called Stained in 2017 and a TVB drama called Oh My God, Your Honor in 2018, and also a movie called The Sparring Partner was released in 2022 based exactly on this case. Anyway, that's back to the story. So this character, based on Angus, pretends to be weak, acts as a sidekick, but actually manipulates Henry Chau into killing his parents and wins sympathy from the jury and judge before calmly escaping. The character in the movie based on Angus is depicted as a ruthless and unsociable killer. However, Angus' real-life experiences prove that he is actually a good person who has been betrayed numerous times but has never displayed any violent behavior. So what's the truth then? Perhaps only Henry and Angus would know. And here is now the end of the video. I think that's my second video that passes the 1 hour time mark. As I am recording, I can't see the total time after the editing. Fingers crossed, I have some luck with the algorithm for this video. Anyway, thanks for watching and bearing with my sloppy research for the case. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.